And Kentucky State Police are now investigating what they are calling a double shooting. Police say just before 6:30 Sunday morning, they responded to a home on Patton Road. Upon arrival, police found Franklin resident Tierra Williams with multiple gunshot wounds. She was taken to the medical center in Franklin where she was pronounced dead. According to KSP, they located the suspect, Williams' husband, Jeremy Williams, on the interstate around mile marker 23 with an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Just before 6:30 this morning, Kentucky State Police received a call for service in reference to a shooting incident that occurred at 637 Patton Road in Franklin, Kentucky. Troopers arrived on the scene, located a deceased female in the residence. The suspect in the first shooting was located at the 23-mile marker of I-65 northbound. He was located there by troopers, deceased by apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Police say that they have detectives on both scenes collecting evidence and trying to process the crime. They assure residents that this was an isolated incident and that the public is not in any danger. WBKR News will update this story as more information becomes available.
This is the story of Tierra Williams, a young entrepreneur whose only crime was being too successful for her husband's fragile ego to handle. In Franklin, Kentucky, a small town that prided itself on safety and community values, a 21-year-old woman was about to learn that sometimes the greatest danger comes from the person who promised to love and protect you. Tonight, we're not just telling you what happened to Tierra. We're examining every red flag that led to her murder, every warning sign that was missed, and every moment where intervention could have saved her life. Because understanding Tierra's story isn't just about honoring her memory, it's about preventing the next tragedy. Welcome to True Crime Red Flag, where we examine the warning signs everyone ignored. Before we dive into Tierra's story, if you're new to our channel, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We focus on the patterns and warning signs that could prevent these tragedies, and your subscription helps us reach more people who need to hear these stories. Now, let's meet Tierra Williams and understand how a young woman's dreams became her death sentence. Franklin, Kentucky seemed like a place where dreams could take root and flourish. This small city in Simpson County, with its tree-lined streets and close-knit community, boasted crime rates well below the national average. It was the kind of place where neighbors knew each other's names and local businesses were family affairs passed down through generations. Into this environment was born Tierra Nakia Williams on August 23, 2000, in nearby Lexington. Her parents, Terry Prince and Lakeisha McCrory, watched their daughter grow into someone special from an early age. Tierra wasn't just another child going through the motions of adolescence. She was someone with purpose, drive, and an infectious enthusiasm for life that drew people to her. At Franklin Simpson High School, Tierra threw herself into everything with characteristic passion. She cheered on the sidelines as part of the cheerleading squad, expressing herself through dance and pushing her physical limits as a member of the track team. But what really defined Tierra during these formative years was her involvement in the praise and worship ensemble at Harvester Warehouse Pentecostal Church. This wasn't mere attendance or going through religious motions. This was a young woman who had found her spiritual center and was using her voice to inspire others. When Tierra graduated in 2018, she had options. Her grades were solid, her extracurricular activities showed leadership and commitment, and her family supported whatever path she chose. She initially pursued dental education, completing her studies in 2019 with the same dedication she brought to everything else in her life. But as Tierra moved into young adulthood, she began to recognize that her true calling lay elsewhere. The realization came gradually, as the best insights often do. Tierra noticed a gap in her community, working families struggling to find quality, affordable childcare that would give them peace of mind while they earned their living. She saw parents dropping off their children at substandard facilities because those were the only options available. She watched families sacrifice career opportunities because they couldn't find reliable care for their little ones. Most 20-year-olds might have seen this as someone else's problem to solve. Tierra saw it as an opportunity to make a real difference while building something of her own. At 21 years old, Tierra Williams launched T&J's Childcare. She didn't come from money or have family connections in the business world. What she had was determination and an incredible work ethic. Tiara enrolled her daycare in Kentucky's food program, providing breakfast, lunch, and 2 snacks daily to all children. She accepted both private payments and state vouchers, making her services accessible to families regardless of income. She created separate spaces for different age groups, an infant room, a school-age room for before and after school care, and a preschool area. The business hours she maintained tell the story of someone who understood her community's needs intimately. T&J's childcare opened at 6 in the morning and stayed open until 5:30 in the evening, Monday through Friday. These weren't banker's hours. These were the hours of someone who recognized that working parents needed flexibility and reliability above all else. What made Tiara's success even more remarkable was her genuine passion for the work. This wasn't someone going through the motions to make money. Her social media posts radiated authentic joy and pride in what she was building. She constantly promoted her business, not out of desperation for clients, but because she truly believed in the value she was providing to families. She hosted open houses, brought in special guests, and created an environment where children thrived and parents felt confident about their choice. For 3 years, Tiara built her reputation one satisfied family at a time. Parents trusted her with their most precious possessions, their children, and she never took that responsibility lightly. She was profitable, respected in the community, and expanding her client base through word-of-mouth recommendations that money couldn't buy. By any measure, Tierra Williams had achieved something extraordinary. She had identified a need in her community, created a solution, and built a sustainable business that served families while providing her with independence and financial security. At 21, she was living proof that the American dream was still possible for those willing to work for it. This success should have been celebrated. It should have made her a source of pride for everyone who knew her. Instead, it made her a target. It was during this period of professional triumph that Tiara met Jeremy Williams. At 25, Jeremy was 4 years older than Tiara, and initially he seemed like the perfect complement to her driven personality. Here was a man who appeared mature enough to handle being with a successful woman, someone who could match her ambition and support her dreams while building dreams of his own. Their courtship unfolded like something from a romantic movie. Jeremy was attentive, supportive, and seemed genuinely impressed by what Tiara had accomplished at such a young age. He participated in promotional videos for T&J's childcare, presenting himself as a proud partner who wanted to help his girlfriend succeed. To friends and family watching their relationship develop, they looked like two young people who had found something special together. The relationship progressed with a momentum that felt natural and exciting. They fell deeply in love, or at least what they both believed was love at the time. Jeremy proposed, and Tiara said yes, envisioning a future where they would build something beautiful together. Their wedding was everything a young couple could want, surrounded by family and friends who believed they were witnessing the beginning of a lifelong partnership. Soon after the wedding, Tiara and Jeremy received what felt like the ultimate blessing. They were expecting their first child together. The announcement on social media was met with an outpouring of love and support from their community. Everything about the pregnancy felt planned and perfect. They had a beautiful baby shower where friends and family celebrated not just the coming child, but what appeared to be a relationship that had everything going for it. When their daughter was born, both Tiara and Jeremy got tattoos of her name, a permanent declaration of their devotion to this new life they had created together. The baby became the center of their world, and Tiara threw herself into motherhood with the same passion she brought to everything else in her life. From the outside, Tierra Williams appeared to have achieved the impossible trifecta that so many women struggle to balance. She was a successful entrepreneur running a thriving business. She was a devoted mother who documented precious moments with her daughter and rarely went a day without capturing new memories. And she was a loving wife who made sure Jeremy felt supported and included in every aspect of their life together. Even while managing the demands of a newborn, Tierra continued to operate T&J's childcare at the same high standards that had built her reputation. She ensured that every child in her care received the attention and nurturing their parents expected, while simultaneously learning how to be a mother herself. She maintained the household, managed the business finances, handled marketing and client relations, and still found energy to care for Jeremy's emotional needs. To anyone watching from the outside, this looked like a woman who had figured out how to have it all. She had proven that young mothers could be successful entrepreneurs without sacrificing their family relationships. She was living proof that with enough determination and organizational skills, a woman could excel in every role she chose to take on. But Jeremy Williams was seeing something entirely different when he looked at his wife's success. While Tierra was building her empire and nurturing their family, Jeremy was drowning in feelings that he didn't understand and couldn't control. What should have been a source of pride, having a wife who was not only beautiful and loving, but also incredibly accomplished, instead became a source of deep, festering resentment that would ultimately prove deadly. Jeremy's jealousy didn't start as full-blown paranoia. Like most toxic behaviors, it began small and grew gradually until it consumed everything in its path. At first, it might have seemed like normal concern or even romantic attention. Jeremy wanted to know about Tiara's day, who she had talked to, what clients had said to her, but what started as interest slowly transformed into interrogation. Running a successful daycare meant that Tierra interacted with dozens of people every day. Parents dropping off and picking up their children, vendors delivering supplies, inspectors ensuring compliance with state regulations, other business owners in the community. These interactions were not just normal, but essential to her business operations. But Jeremy couldn't see them as professional relationships. In his increasingly distorted thinking, every conversation Tierra had with a man became a potential romantic encounter. When a father spent a few extra minutes chatting about his child's progress, Jeremy would grill Tierra afterward. What exactly had they discussed? Why had the conversation lasted so long? Had the man seemed overly friendly? When business required Tierra to coordinate with male vendors or meet with male clients, Jeremy treated these professional necessities as threats to their marriage. The surveillance extended far beyond just business interactions. Jeremy began monitoring Tiara's phone, checking her social media accounts, and demanding detailed explanations for every like, comment, or message she received. He wanted to know the backstory behind every friendship, the nature of every relationship, and the details of every conversation he had during the day. What made Jeremy's behavior particularly insidious was that his paranoia wasn't limited to the present moment. He became consumed with imaginary future scenarios where Tiara's success would lead her to abandon him. He would say things like, "Once your business gets even bigger, you're going to think you're too good for me," or "I know you're just waiting for some rich businessman to sweep you off your feet." This future-focused anxiety meant that Tierra could never win. Even when she was being completely faithful and devoted in the present, Jeremy was already angry about betrayals that existed only in his imagination. When Tierra talked about expanding T&J's childcare or hiring additional staff, Jeremy heard these aspirations as threats to their relationship, rather than shared goals they could celebrate together. Jeremy began weaponizing Tiara's success against her in ways that revealed the depth of his insecurity. When T&J's childcare received positive reviews online, Jeremy would find ways to diminish them, suggesting that clients didn't really know the real Tierra the way he did. When new families enrolled their children in her program, Jeremy would accuse her of showing off or thinking she's better than everyone. Most devastatingly, Jeremy twisted Tiara's professional confidence into evidence of personal arrogance. Her business acumen became proof that she was materialistic. Her success became evidence that she had gotten too big for her britches and would inevitably look down on him. In Jeremy's distorted worldview, every achievement his wife earned was actually a step away from him rather than something they could celebrate together. The emotional manipulation that accompanied this jealousy was perhaps the cruelest aspect of Jeremy's behavior. He made his own deep-seated insecurities Tiara's full-time responsibility to manage. When Jeremy would have emotional breakdowns about his fear that Tiara would leave him, she would have to drop everything, including caring for the children in her daycare and their own baby, to comfort him and reassure him of her love. Jeremy created elaborate scenarios in his mind about what might happen if Tiara attended business conferences, networking events, or even simple errands around town. Then he would demand that Tiara provide detailed plans for how she would handle these imaginary situations. He made her promise to text him constantly throughout the day to prove she wasn't cheating. He made her turn down business opportunities that would require travel or evening events where anything could happen. When Tiara would express frustration with these demands, Jeremy would manipulate the conversation to make her feel guilty for not understanding his concerns. He convinced her that his jealousy was actually proof of how much he loved her. He reframed his controlling behavior as protection, suggesting that if she truly cared about their family, she would be willing to make these small sacrifices to ease his worries. The psychological impact of this constant scrutiny and emotional manipulation was devastating. Tiara found herself walking on eggshells, modifying her natural personality and business practices to avoid triggering Jeremy's insecurities. She began second-guessing normal interactions, worrying about how Jeremy would interpret routine business conversations. She started declining opportunities and limiting her professional growth to keep peace in her marriage. Jeremy had succeeded in making Tiara feel responsible for managing his emotions while giving himself no responsibility for managing hers. She had to be constantly vigilant about not triggering his paranoia, but he felt entitled to create anxiety, stress, and fear in her life whenever his insecurities flared up. By June of that year, Jeremy's jealousy had reached a breaking point that would prove fatal. His accusations had become daily occurrences. His demands for proof of Tiara's loyalty had become impossible to satisfy, and his paranoid scenarios had taken over their household entirely. What had once been a home filled with the joy of new parenthood and business success had become a pressure cooker of suspicion and rage. Jeremy's regular rants about Tiara's perceived infidelity had become so routine that they were simply part of the family's daily dysfunction. These weren't occasional arguments or normal marital disagreements. These were systematic campaigns of psychological warfare designed to break down Tiara's confidence and independence. Jeremy would work himself into states of fury over imagined slights, perceived disrespect, and fictional romantic encounters that existed nowhere except in his increasingly unhinged mind. The morning that would end Tiara's life started like so many others had in recent weeks, with Jeremy's accusations flying and his paranoia reaching new heights. But this time, something was different. This time, Jeremy had reached a point where words weren't enough to express his rage and jealousy. This time, he made a decision that would destroy multiple lives and leave a baby girl without either parent. During one of his tirades about Tiara's supposed infidelity, Jeremy grabbed his gun. In that moment, all of his insecurities, all of his rage, and all of his inability to cope with his wife's success crystallized into a single deadly action. He shot Tiara multiple times, ending the life of a 21-year-old mother whose only crimes were being successful, independent, and unwilling to make herself smaller to accommodate his massive insecurities. After killing his wife, Jeremy fled the scene, driving to Interstate 65, where he took his own life at mile marker 23. In his final act of selfishness, he chose to destroy everything rather than face the consequences of his actions, seek help for his mental health issues, or simply walk away from a marriage he couldn't handle. The aftermath of Tiara's murder rippled through Franklin, Kentucky, and beyond, leaving a community struggling to understand how such violence could happen in their safe, quiet town. But the impact was most devastating on those who loved Tiara most. Lakeisha McCrory lost not just a daughter but her best friend, someone she had talked to every single day, someone who brought light and laughter into every room she entered. Her smile just illuminated everything. Lakeisha would later say, "It didn't matter how dark you felt. If she would smile, just a piece of you would smile too." The baby girl that Tiara and Jeremy had both tattooed on their bodies as symbols of their love was left without either parent. This innocent child, who should have grown up surrounded by her mother's entrepreneurial spirit and her father's love, instead became an orphan because Jeremy couldn't handle being married to a successful woman. The children who had been enrolled at T&J's childcare lost not just their caregiver, but a role model who had shown them what it looked like when someone pursued their dreams with passion and dedication. The families who had trusted Tiara with their most precious possessions, their children, were left to process the shocking reality that someone so full of life and promise could be destroyed by the very success that made her special. After killing his wife, Jeremy fled the scene in his vehicle. Neighbors who heard the gunshots called 911 around 6:30 that morning. When authorities arrived at the house on Patton Road in Franklin, they found Tiara's body with multiple gunshot wounds. She was transported to the medical center at Franklin, where she was officially pronounced dead by the Simpson County Coroner's Office. Kentucky State Police immediately began searching for Jeremy Williams in connection with his wife's murder. They put out an all-points bulletin and began checking his known locations and associates. Officers searched throughout Simpson County and the surrounding areas, but Jeremy had vanished. The manhunt didn't last long. Not too long after the initial call, police found Jeremy deceased in his vehicle on northbound Interstate 65 near mile marker 23. He had suffered what authorities determined to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. Jeremy had chosen to take his own life rather than face the consequences of murdering his wife. Police confirmed that both scenes were connected, the shooting at the Patton Road residence and Jeremy's death on the interstate. Detectives processed both crime scenes, collecting evidence and trying to piece together the final moments of this domestic violence tragedy. They assured the community that this was an isolated incident and that the public was not in any danger. Jeremy Williams robbed the world of someone who was making a genuine difference in her community. Tiara wasn't just running a business. She was providing a service that allowed other families to pursue their own dreams while knowing their children were safe and loved. She was proving that young women could build something meaningful while still being devoted mothers and wives. She was showing that success didn't have to come at the expense of family relationships. Tiara Williams should be alive today, watching her daughter take her first steps and celebrating the 5th anniversary of T&J's childcare. She should be expanding her business, maybe opening a second location, and continuing to prove that young women can build empires while raising families. Instead, she's gone because we as a society still don't take seriously the danger posed by male entitlement and jealousy over female success. If you recognize any part of Tiara's story in your own life, if someone is monitoring your activities, weaponizing your achievements, or making you feel guilty for being successful, please understand that you're not overreacting and it's not your fault. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24 hours a day at 1-800-799-7233 with trained counselors who understand these patterns and can help create safety plans. For immediate danger, always call 911. But here's what I want every viewer to do right now. Save those numbers in your phone. Share them with your friends. When you see someone being torn down for their success, speak up. When you witness controlling behavior being disguised as love, call it what it is. When someone tells you their partner can't handle their achievements, help them understand that this isn't normal relationship stress, it's abuse. Thank you for watching True Crime Red Flag. If Tiara's story has opened your eyes to warning signs you hadn't recognized before, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. We examine these patterns every week because understanding them saves lives. Share this video with someone who needs to see it. Your action could prevent the next Tiara Williams from becoming a victim.